Hello and welcome to New Central Television. I am Likon Onobanjo. The top stories at this hour. A cross-section of Nigerians reject a House of Reps proposal for compulsory voting for eligible voters. Defense Headquarters dismisses viral video circulating on social media claiming to show terrorists overrun a military base in Marte, Borno State. And we also tell you that Al-Qaeda affiliate kills 200 soldiers in attack on army base in Burkina Faso. Details to come your way shortly. Let's begin with politics. A cross-section of Nigerians, including lawyers and civil society organizations, have opposed a bill in the House of Representatives seeking to amend the Electoral Act 2022 to make voting in all national, state and local council elections compulsory for all eligible Nigerians. The bill, jointly sponsored by Speaker Abbas Tajuddin and Daniel Samago, is titled A Bill for an Action to Amend the Electoral Act 2022 to make it mandatory for Nigerians of maturity age to vote in all national and state elections and for related matters. The bill proposes a 6-month imprisonment or a fine of not more than 100,000 naira for any registered voter convicted for failing to exercise his or her franchise during national, state and local council polls. In the meantime, Nigerian election watchdog Yaga Africa and Public Accountability Advocacy Group Enough is Enough have raised an alarm ahead of local government elections slated to take place in Lagos in July. The coalition said the process adopted by the Lagos State Independent Election Commission raises what it described as legal, procedural and transparency concerns which must be immediately reviewed to avoid a wholesale violation of the election laws in Nigeria. In a statement issued on Thursday, the following key issues were highlighted for immediate review. Now, a violation of section on 103, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act, which states that elections must be held not earlier than 150 days and not later than 30 days before the expiration of the tenure of sitting officials. Widespread concerns over transparency and due process. The Inter-Party Advisory Council, comprising all 19 registered political parties in Lagos, has condemned last year's unilateral release of the guidelines without consultation with political stakeholders, violating established democratic norms. The lack of engagement on sensitive electoral materials matters, including the status of the 37 local council development areas following the Supreme Court ruling on local government autonomy. The concealment of a revised LASIK law reportedly approved on January 9, 2025 and signed into law on January 10, empowering LASIK to conduct elections in 57 local government and local council development areas without making it public or accessible to political actors. A general pattern of secrecy and non-collaboration, especially from the new LASIK board chaired by Justice Mubolanle Okikiolu-Igile, retired. They suggested for LASIK to review and revise the election date to comply with the Electoral Act of 2022. Well, earlier on the news, we told you that there's been a bill in the House of Representatives that would mandate that Nigerians should vote in every electoral cycle. And this has generated heated arguments across several platforms as to how that will be possible and if that does not actually violate the constitutional rights of the citizens. So at this point, we're joined by a public affairs commentator, Jide Johnson, who is right here in our studios to talk more about this. Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson, for coming around.
It's a pleasure to be with you and good day to our viewers all over the world. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, should Nigerians, by law, be forced to vote?
Well, franchise is a fundamental human right of every citizenry, and every right is a product of, when it comes to franchise, your right to vote and to be voted for. And that cannot be made compulsory, and that can only be based on your free will. And so attempt by the National Assembly, particularly through the House of Rep, to make it compulsory for all Nigerians to vote during the election is a legislative overreach and a dictatorial approach to democratic principles and norms. And it also tells you about their priority. It tells that the priority of the National Assembly membership is about how to secure and win the election. They did not talk about reforming the electoral processes. They did not make it compulsory for Nigerians to have free education. They didn't make it compulsory for all Nigerian communities to be connected to the national grid. They didn't make it compulsory for all Nigerians to have national comprehensive health insurance scheme. What they are making compulsory is voting. It tells you the priority. And if you look at it in terms of scale of preference, what is mostly important to you is what you play first. And this is what the National Assembly is placing first, and it's even coming from the office of the Speaker.
Well, they consider that this particular motion is also part of consolidating or amending the Electoral Act. And of course, the argument or the validation thereof comes from other countries like Australia, Belgium, Brazil, and the likes that have actually adopted compulsory voting, and the outcomes have been positive. So shouldn't this be a benchmark, considered as a benchmark for a country that's trying to strengthen its democracy?
No, that is feasible whereby the voters have confidence. You know the second story which you read in your major headline was talking about the local government election in Lagos. Yaga is raising red flags concerning that. I can tell you for a fact, I was part and parcel of the primary process last weekend. A friend of mine was contesting the election for the local government chairman in Lagos State under the APC platform. It was a charade. It was a charade. It was something that was rigged with a lot of malpractices when it comes to electoral process and procedure. So you can only make voting compulsory whereby the people have confidence in the process. If you look at the processes that have been put in place, what Nigerians are calling for is electoral reforms. Let's reform the process. Now let's have the same day voting. Let's have declaration of result of the election through electronic voting and the rest of it. If you put that in place, if you increase people's confidence in the process, there will be no need for you to make a law that makes it mandatory for people to vote, because people's confidence in it will encourage them to come out to vote in the election. But when I know quite all right that if I come out to vote, my vote does not count, the process had already been manipulated, the process had already been made predictable to bring up predictable outcome, then people will lose confidence in it. And they know quite all right that the voters turnout in 2027 will be marginally low compared to what we have had in the past, and that's why they are trying to do this overreach. What kind of voters education have they embarked upon? What type of program have they done in terms of voters registration? What have they done concerning electoral reforms? And you are talking about compulsory voting. It's my choice to vote or not to vote. You can't force that down the throat of the people.
So would this now mean that the legislators are not actually sincere with what needs to be done to actually improve or strengthen the democratic values and fabrics?
Well, what Nigerians are calling for is our government can come up with policies that will reduce the double-digit inflation that we have, that will make their life better, that will address the insecurity issues that we have, that people can travel to the length and breadth of this country, that will address the power problem. Voting or no voting in the election is not what is the major concern of an average Nigerian presently that cannot even afford to feed his family, that can't even afford to take care of his family. So as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a misplaced priority with respect to what the National Assembly is paying attention on. And they are placing attention on this particular matter because this is what is dear to their heart. They are interested in perpetuating themselves in power. They are not interested in giving the populace deliverables of democracy, things that will make life better for you and I. And that's my thinking.
But just permit me to be cheeky. There are some countries who would force their citizens to participate in military exercise and probably be forced to be conscripted into the Nigerian army when there is a need for that, if there's a war to happen. Now, some people will say this is an electoral process towards patriotism and strengthening Nigeria's electoral system, so to speak, or administration. I mean, we might not get it right, but this might just be one step in the right direction.
Now, if you look at the outcome of 2023 elections and the off-cycle election, the processes that characterize all the off-cycle election, which average Nigerian will have confidence in going out to vote? In actual sense, I said it. Look, there's no election since I turned 18 that I have not voted in. by making it compulsory. For the very first time in my life, I'm not going to vote, because anything you force down the throat of the people, you have taken away their free will. Look, even Almighty God gave it to mankind. See, I lay before you life and death. The power of choice is the ultimate right that God has given to mankind. Nobody can force it down your throat to take a particular decision. They should make education compulsory. They should make every community connected to the national grid compulsory. They should make every Nigerian have access to comprehensive health scheme compulsory. That's what they should be focusing on, not who voted or who did not vote in a particular election. And that's not the major concern of Nigeria now. The major concern of Nigeria is to put food on the table of their family, and to ensure that if they want to go to any parts in this country, they can feel safe in the comfort of their home and in the comfort of their travel. So that should be their focus. This shouldn't be the focus of. It's a misplacement. And then don't forget, this is just a distraction. A distraction for many. You know, you and I were talking about it now. Everybody will debate that for the next 2-3 months, and then we'll not be able to talk about what are the achievements of this particular administration in the last 2 years.
Well, this administration sent representatives abroad to go and share the scorecard with some would investors outside of the country. But that's
another issue for another day, because we just take the timeline that is meant for the news program. That's another issue for another day.
Well, of course. Jide Johnson, thank you so much for your time on the news.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's move on to other stories now. The House of Representatives has resolved to investigate the circumstances leading to the mass failure of candidates in the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination conducted by the Joint Admission and Matriculations Board, JAMB, recently. This followed the adoption of a motion on matters of urgent public importance moved by Adewale Adebayo at the plenary. The House also called for the establishment of at least one computer-based testing center in each of the 774 local government areas of the country for the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. Now, last month, the Senate considered a similar resolution saying there will be budgetary provisions in the 2026 fiscal year for the establishment of CBT centers across the 774 local government areas of the country. To discuss this, we are joined by a public affairs analyst, Kenneth Ikenwa. Mr. Ikenwa, thank you so much for coming up to talk about this on the news.
Thanks for having me on.
So, should JAMB be scrapped, with some people saying it has overstayed its relevance?
Well, I'm a product of JAMB, and I know people that are much older than me are also products of JAMB. I think it's a concerted effort to see to it that there is a unified system for Nigerian students who have school certificates to get into university to study for their first degrees. And so if you ask me, considering the dynamics of our complexity as a people, I would say a capital no. JAMB should not be scrapped. But JAMB could be restructured, JAMB could be unbundled, JAMB could be made to look at benchmarks globally and use those benchmarks to now reinvent itself to ensure that we have quality students that go to universities matriculation and quality students that actually graduate from the different almost over 300 tertiary institutions that we have in Nigeria. JAMB has come to stay, and JAMB should continue to stay. But there is a room for evolution, and there is a room for more continuous improvement in the operations of JAMB and in the targets of JAMB going forward.
Okay, well, you're privy to the video of the JAMB registrar blaming the terrible results on a system glitch. Is that excuse tenable, or should he be tendering his resignation?
Well, I think for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we're having what I will call administrative humility, the ability to actually see administrators come to terms with the fact that an error has been made and take full responsibility for that. But we are also evolving in our social structure and political culture, and that will not at this point in time see to it that administrators actually tender resignations for glitches like this, for problems like this, for complexities like this, which they take full responsibility for. So the first thing we should actually appreciate is the fact that the CEO and registrar was able to come out and not sweep this problem under the carpet and hinder the destinies of over 380,000 Nigerians who have suffered or who are a victim of this technological and technical glitch. I would still say that it's commendable. This is the first time that we're seeing administrative humility, like I said, replacing what has become entrenched in our culture, in our society, which I'll call the character deficit. So for the fact that the JAMB management was able to come out to actually apologize to Nigerians, to actually identify where the problem came from, and to actually address it going forward, it is a good pointer in the direction of our evolution in terms of public administration. And I think that such behavior should be rewarded, and whatever was responsible for this technical glitch should be further investigated. And I would suggest that to avoid this, mock examinations, mock test running of the entire system across the nook and crannies of the Federation should be carried out, so that we do not have this kind of collective embarrassment and the collateral damage that has come with it.
But do you think,
it is win-win, for JAMB.
Kenneth, do you think that that show of administrative humility would have come to be if people had not, if there had not been an outcry, or people had not come out to talk about it? Because at some point, some people were really willing to take JAMB to court before the Minister of Education came out to say that, see, the system is failure-proof, it is malpractice-proof, and that is why we saw that massive failure in the examination results.
Well, there have been different theories that have been propounded, have been expanded to actually describe, explain, predict why this rate of mass failure actually did occur. And now we are seeing to it that at least out of the large number of students that actually did fail, a good number, a significant number, 380,000 of them actually became victims of this technological glitch. Now, I wouldn't want to join arguments, whether for or whether against, with respect to if the outcry was what actually led, to people actually coming out, to the administrators actually coming out to admit the errors. I would just think that it's a learning curve experience for both the Nigerian publics and for the Nigerian administrators. And not just for JAMB, not just for administration at the educational sector, but in all sectors of the economy, in all sectors of public administration. We saw something like this happen a little under 2 years ago with the Nigerian Identity Management Card or Control Board, or I think it's called the NIMC, where there was a technical glitch and people had access and people were able to buy and purchase their private data, breaching their personal security online. So we are a growing nation. We are technologically leapfrogging. We are making advances in technology, and issues like this will just make us sit tight, borrow better technological capital from more advanced nations, put our acts together, and ensure that there's proper privacy, there's proper security, there's proper cyber security, and glitches like this do not embarrass millions and millions and hundreds of Nigerians of people, and embarrass collectively the Nigerian nation going forward.
So even as we look at how to improve technological might in these areas, now let's juxtapose what happened with JAMB with the Imesoma Ejekime's case. That's the 19-year-old student from Anambra State accused of forging a result after claiming to have scored 362 in the UTME. Now, what does that tell you? Because she was not given the opportunity to come and apologize and given the opportunity to rewrite and retrace the steps. But then we see a JAMB registrar was come out to say, I'm sorry, give me a second chance. Is it balanced?
Okay, we cannot completely say that the young lady, Menesoma, I hope I did pronounce her name properly, was not given the opportunity to apologize. And we are looking at that from the macro point of view. Issues of that nature, even though we say they are singular and unitary, should be better considered from the macro point of view. And what do I mean by that? We should look at it from the larger societal point of view. What in the first place was the motivation? What in the first place was the trigger? What in the first place was a major factor that led to the falsification of that result, or that led to that action, and that led to the celebration of that action, or the admittance, the accommodation of that action on the part of the larger public and on the part of the individual involved? Simply put, we have gotten to a stage in our country where we have become paper certified, we have become paper celebrated. We celebrate more of papers, we celebrate more of degrees rather than pedigree. And that brings us back to the issue, and that which borders on, character deficit versus humility versus the focus on integrity and purpose-driven administrative practices. The single factor that explains why the menosoma case was prevalent in Nigeria and will continue to be prevalent across different sectors is that we have placed too much emphasis on paper certifications, on degree certifications, rather than focusing on the pedigree of individuals that actually peddle these degrees and peddle these papers. So we must have a paradigm shift. Okay, when you graduate from the university, a proper Nigerian university, you find written in your certificate found worthy in character and learning. So we have a society that wants to pay all emphasis on the learning aspect, on your 2-1, on your first class, on your doctorate degree, whilst not paying the major aspect to the learning, the character, the character side of the pendulum that comes with education. So that paradigm shift should be what we should be emphasizing now. Whether we want to say it openly or whether we want to say it in secret, the fact remains that we have entrenched examination malpractice in our system. We have parents that pay for this. We have parents that encourage this. We have schools that even encourage this. These are issues that need to be brought to the front burner that we should start addressing head on, so that we can have more competitive graduates. We can have a more globally competitive educational system across all levels, and we can prepare ourselves for the technological shifts and advancements that we should have attained even before now.
All right, thank you so much, Kenneth Ikenwa, for sharing your thoughts with us on the news.
Always my pleasure.
We're going to break right now. When we return, Defense Headquarters dismisses viral video linked to terrorists' attack in Borno State. We'll bring you more details in a short while. Stay with us. And now we talk security. President Bola Tinubu is currently holding a high-level security meeting with the service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police at the State House. The closed-door session comes ahead of his scheduled departure to Rome, where he will attend the inauguration Mass of Pope Leo XIV, following a formal invitation from the Vatican. While the agenda of the meeting has not been made public, it is expected to center on the recent attacks on military bases and the surge in insecurity across various parts of the country. Present at the meeting are the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, the Chief of Air Staff, the Chief of Naval Staff, and the Inspector General of Police. Still on security matters, the Defense Headquarters dismissed a viral video circulating on social media claiming to show terrorists overrunning a military base in Mate, Borno State. The DHQ described the footage as fake and part of a disinformation campaign. Major General Marcus Kange, Director of Defense Media Operations, clarified that the video was originally posted on December 7, 2020 and is unrelated to the recent attack in Mate. He said forensic analysis confirmed that the video's terrain and content do not match the recent events. The military emphasized that troops successfully repelled the May 12, 2025 attack, neutralizing many terrorists. The old video, they said, was recycled to mislead and spread fear. Meanwhile, Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has given the assurance that the nation's armed forces stand ready to beat back the resurgence of terror attacks in the northeast. General Musa spoke during a visit to Maiduguri days after a wave of attacks rocked Borno State, in which an army base in Monguno local government was razed. He assured residents that a fresh deployment of more equipment and troops was already underway. The Senate had on Tuesday urged the military to redeploy troops and modern equipment to Borno and Yobe states in response to renewed attacks by Boko Haram insurgents.
Our troops are out there in Sambisa, in Timbuktu, doing operations as we go on, as we speak now. Not only here in the northwest, north central, efforts are being made to ensure that Nigeria is safe and secure in line with the mandate of Mr. President. The naval guys we have seen are just part of the plans we're having ahead. Equipment are coming in, more platforms, air assets are coming in, more actions are being taken to ensure that we address these issues of the attacks here and there, and I can assure you that things will continue to be better.
Away from that, the judicial system of Nigeria has been challenged to live up to its expectation of being the last hope of the common man in trying arrested suspects in connection with the numerous killings in Plateau State. Stakeholders from Riyom and Jos South local government areas of the state gave the challenge during an engagement organized for a peaceful farming season in the areas. News Central's correspondent Chizoba Ayonwe tells us more.
Both Riom and Jos South local government areas of Plateau State, known for the rich farming culture of the people, have not been spared of violent attacks in the state. Now that the rainy season is here, the General Officer Commanding and Commander of Operation Safe Haven, Major General Folusho Oyinlola, believes this is the right time to engage these stakeholders on the need for peaceful farming season.
The impact of these activities on food security, economic stability, and social harmony cannot be overemphasized. We cannot afford to allow the destruction of farmlands and cattle rustling to continue, creating great tension in the area. The herding and farming communities must educate their wards on the need to take conscious steps against farm destruction and attack on cattle, as well as cattle poisoning, which are often the major crisis triggers.
Governor Caleb Mutfwang and other major actors at the event are of the view that if the right strings are pulled, then peace will reign in the state again.
You say the police is there, the military men are there, they will not do all the job. Charity begins at home. We have a lot of duty to do.
We have a constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that has core values. That when those core values are respected, we are going to succeed as a nation.
We must return to our family values. That is what has eroded us, and is the reason why we will continue to have sittings like this, time without number, and solutions are not found.
These locals, who usually bear the brunt of these attacks, cannot wait for lasting peace on the plateau.
You buy fertilizer farm, and then during harvest they will cut it down. On this note, we are calling that we should have a memorandum of understanding here and sign.
We used to arrest the criminals. We will take them to the police stations immediately. You see a lawyer and his back before you say anything. So that criminal is back home.
As this event draws to a close, it also serves as a challenge and a wake-up call to the judiciary to truly prove that they are the last hope of the common man in Jos South local government area of Plateau State. For News Central, Chizoba Ayonwe.
We tell you that the Senate has passed for the second reading a bill seeking to establish a national agency for malaria eradication. The proposed agency is expected to coordinate nationwide efforts aimed at eradicating malaria and improving public health. The Senate also considered a bill seeking to mandate ministries, departments, and agencies of government to prioritize locally manufactured automobiles in their procurement processes. News Central's National Assembly correspondent Sagir Ibrahim brings us more details in this report.
This mandate will be clear and aggressive. Formulate and champion national policies for malaria eradication, coordinate inter-agency and sectoral responses with authority, mobilize and manage resources efficiently and transparently.
Lawmakers who supported the bill referenced the impact of malaria on children and pregnant women in the country, welcoming it as a strategic effort to combat the deadly disease.
This bill will focus our attention on eradicating malaria, or at least in the first instance, reducing the impact in terms of death and in terms of sickness amongst the Nigerian people.
The time has come for us to look critically at this. The lives of Nigerians and the devastating effect of malaria is beyond comprehension.
With the bill now passed for second reading, it moves to the Senate Health Committee for further legislative work. The Senate also considered the Local Automotive Industry Patronage Bill 2025, seeking to mandate government institutions to prioritize locally manufactured automobiles during procurement. The bill, sponsored by Patrick Ndubueze, representing Imo North Senatorial District, faults Nigeria's overdependence on imported vehicles and goods.
It is important that goods and services are produced locally, as its ripple effect is a reduction in imports and a rise in exports. That's balance of trade.
What this bill seeks to do is essentially to give legal tooth to the resolution of the Federal Executive Council, so that the resolution of the Federal Executive Council is done through an executive fiat.
Patronize made in Nigeria vehicles. There are assembly plants and there are manufacture of vehicles in this country. So if we are able to patronize them, of course, it will help our economy because more jobs will be created. We wouldn't be spending our money to import cars overseas.
Lawmakers believe that once passed, the legislation will boost the local automobile industry, enhancing economic growth and promoting competitiveness among Nigerian manufacturers. In Abuja for News Central, Sagir Ibrahim.
Coming up on the news, Gabon's former president Ali Bongo Dimba and his family have been released from detention and have arrived in Luanda, Angola. We'll bring you more details of this and other stories in a short while. Join us again. Now, the Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam was Muslimin, JNIM, an affiliate of Al-Qaeda, says 200 soldiers were killed during an attack on a Burkina Faso military base. The base in the northern town of Djibu came under attack on Sunday morning, with hundreds of fighters overrunning and destroying it, security sources told Reuters at the time. A police station and market were also targeted, they said. On Tuesday, the site intelligence group, a United States-based non-government organization which tracks online activities of Islamist militants, said JNIM had taken credit for the assault. At the time, the Burkinabe death toll was pegged at 60. On Thursday, SITE said the terrorist group increased the death toll to 200, and there has been no official government confirmation of the attack or the death toll. And elsewhere, Gabon's former president Ali Bongo Dimba and his family have been released from detention and have arrived in Luanda, Angola. The announcement was made on Friday by the Angolan president, which credited the release to diplomatic efforts led by President João Lourenço, who also currently chairs the African Union. Lourenço held talks with Gabon's transitional leader, President Brice Oligui Nguema, resulting in the Bongo family's release. Away from that, Chad's former Prime Minister's successor, Masra, has been reportedly taken by force from his home early on Friday. According to a statement from his party, Le Transformateur, Masra was abducted at around 5:56 a.m. by armed military personnel. A video posted on his official Facebook page, though unverified, shows him surrounded by soldiers as he leaves his residence, which also serves as party headquarters. Masra, a prominent critic of President Muhammad Idris Deby Itno, served as Prime Minister from January to May 2024 and contested the May presidential election, officially earning 18.5% of the votes to Deby's 61.3%. However, Masra rejected the result, claiming victory. International observers questioned the credibility of the election. From other continents, we tell you that China has expressed support for the renewed peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, emphasizing the importance of achieving a fair, lasting and binding agreement through dialogue and negotiation. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Li Jian reiterated China's consistent position on the Ukraine crisis, stating that Beijing supports all efforts dedicated to peace and hopes that the parties concerned will carry on with the dialogue to reach a mutually acceptable agreement. The direct talks held in Istanbul marked the first face-to-face negotiations between the two nations in over 3 years. While expectations for significant breakthroughs remain low, the discussions revisit terms from early 2022 which include contentious issues such as territorial concessions and Ukraine's neutrality.
我们支持一切致力于和平的努力，支持俄乌双方开启直接谈判，开启直接对话，希望有关各方继续通过对话谈判，达成一份公平、持久、有约束力，并为各当事方接受的和平协议，最终实现乌克兰危机政治。
Trade ministers from the 21-member Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation called APEC concluded a two-day summit in Jeju Island, South Korea, emphasizing the importance of multilateral cooperation in the face of rising protectionism. The ministers unanimously adopted a joint statement reaffirming support for the World Trade Organization and expressing concern over challenges to the global trading system. South Korea introduced an AI for Trade initiative aimed at enhancing customs procedures and trade efficiency through artificial intelligence. A public-private dialogue on this initiative is scheduled for August in Incheon. Despite initial disagreements, the consensus was reached amid ongoing U.S. tariffs affecting over half of APEC members. The summit also addressed global supply chain resilience and the need for WTO reform.
This year's APEC theme is Building a Sustainable Tomorrow, Connect, Innovate, Prosper. Reflecting on this theme, the MRT meeting selected topics that will facilitate discussions on how we can work together to restore the multilateral trading system while addressing current global trade challenges.
Now, Kabul is confronting a severe water crisis driven by rapid urbanization, climate change, and decades of infrastructural neglect. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, warns that the city's groundwater could be depleted by the year 2030 if urgent action is not taken. Currently, only 21% of urban residents have access to piped water, forcing many to rely on expensive private tankers or dig deeper wells. Climate-induced droughts and reduced snowmelt have further strained water resources. Efforts to address the crisis include plans to build small dams and trenches aimed at conserving water. However, without substantial investment in sustainable water management and infrastructure, Kabul's residents will continue to face severe water shortages.
چې کوم خدمات کوو د کابل په ښار کې تر 0% پورې به موږ خدمات کوو نور 80% د خلک ټول اوبو ته ضرورت لري چې دوی ته باید 24 ساعته یا 40 ساعته خدمات وسی او د دوی مشکلات باید حل سی
ما نه 32 تانکرای فروشا داریم دیگه با 50 خانه و تاویزات داریم 50 خانه را میتیم اور نوشیدنی
هر مصرفی ما را از تانکرها میخریم این تانکرها از روش خوبتر هم است از نلا آب شور است که کدام در 100 خانه یک خانه که او داره او هم آب شور است قابل استفاده نیست صرف هم یک شستن یک وسایل میشه با خوردن استفاده نمیشه آبش مکمل شور است آب سی نیست باز این تانکرها نسبتا خوب است از ما میخریم.
Now, U.S. Treasury yields declined today as investors assessed the economy following recent trade negotiations and economic data releases. Straight into business, U.S. Treasury yields declined today as investors assessed the economy following recent trade negotiations and economic data releases. The 10-year Treasury yield fell over 5 basis points to 4.402%, while the 2-year yield dropped more than 3 basis points to 3.938%. This week, optimism grew after the U.S. and China agreed to a temporary 90-day pause on most tariffs, alleviating fears of a global trade war. However, concerns linger as companies like Walmart indicated potential price increases due to tariffs. Additionally, softer than expected inflation data for April eased recession worries. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell cautioned that long-term interest rates may rise due to ongoing policy changes highlighting challenges for the economy and central banks. Investors are also awaiting housing starts data and consumer sentiment surveys. Talking sports now, the Torch of Unity arrived in Ogun State ahead of the 22nd National Sports Festival Gateway Games 2024. Governor Dapo Abiodun received the torch from athlete Dorcas Adeshokon at the City Gate on the Abeokuta-Shiun-Shagamu Expressway. The torch's arrival signals Ogun's readiness to host the national event for the second time, with facilities like an Olympic-sized swimming pool prepared. The torch, which began its journey across Nigeria in March, symbolizes national unity and youth empowerment through sports. Delegates are expected to arrive on Friday, with the opening ceremony scheduled for Sunday at the MKO Abiola Stadium in Abeokuta, highlighting Ogun's cultural vibrancy and commitment to sports development.
Great and auspicious occasion taking place at the city gate of the Gateway State, Ogun State, this day, Thursday, 15th May 2025. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to everyone present here today. So it is the torch that Mr. President, in his committed spirit to youth development and sportsmanship, that same torch that Mr. President lit that day about a month and a half ago and handed over to the different states, that has now come home to the home state of Ogun today.
That's all at this hour, but before we go, we'll look at our top stories again. A cross-section of Nigerians have rejected House of Reps' proposal for compulsory voting for eligible voters. The Defense Headquarters has dismissed a viral video circulating on social media claiming to show terrorists overrunning our military base in Borno State. We also told you that Al-Qaeda affiliate has killed 200 soldiers in an attack on an army base in Burkina Faso. Do send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onabanjo.